There are moments in life when time slows down, not in a poetic, graceful way, but like the frame rate of your entire existence has just glitched. That's what it felt like when I walked into my house that Friday afternoon, suitcase still in hand, heels still pinching coffee from gate 4, still lukewarm in the cup holder. I wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday. My client's launch in Seattle had been postponed last minute, so I hopped an earlier flight, dreaming of takeout sweats and the kind of long nap you can only take on your own couch. But instead, I found my 8-year-old daughter Madison on her hands and knees scrubbing the kitchen floor with a rag that looked older than both of us. No music, no cartoons, no chatter. Just the soft rhythm of her small hands rubbing tile and the sting of lemon-scented cleaner wafting in the air. I blinked, Mads. She startled, looking up like I'd just caught her stealing. Her eyes, usually bright, defiant, impossibly curious, were wide and wet. "Hi, Mommy," she whispered. There was a bucket next to her. No gloves. The tiles were still soaked. I dropped my bag. "Where's Nana and Papa?" They said they were tired," she mumbled, "so they left me to finish cleaning the kitchen." I don't remember walking to her. I just remember sinking to my knees, the cold tile seeping through my pants. I cupped her face. "Tired. Left you here. Alone." Her lip trembled. "They went out. With Savannah." That's when my stomach dropped. Savannah. The real granddaughter. The one they called our little angel. Scott's brother's daughter. Golden-haired. Picture perfect. The one they never forgot to mention in every conversation, no matter how irrelevant. I tried to keep my voice steady. "When did they leave?" "After lunch. They said they were going to the store, but then I saw Savannah's Instagram. She was at Silver Springs Park, on the Ferris wheel." Now, I wasn't just nauseous, I was furious. I was that rare kind of quiet furious, too. The dangerous kind. I took a deep breath. "Okay, first get up, baby. You're not scrubbing anything. Ever. Not like this." Madison looked like she didn't know if she was allowed to move. I gently pulled her up and wrapped her in my arms. Her tiny hands clutched the back of my blazer like she was afraid I'd disappear. "I'm home now," I said. "You're safe." And I meant it. Let me rewind for a second. My name is Amber Bennett. I'm 34, born and raised in Boulder Creek, Colorado, though my job, corporate brand strategist, has taken me just about everywhere from LA to Halifax. I've been in marketing for over a decade, which means I can write copy that makes people cry, design a strategy that makes investors weep with joy and fake confidence at 2 a.m. during a pitch meeting with too much caffeine and not enough data. But nothing prepared me for the day I found my daughter treated like some live-in maid, while the people who were supposed to love her took their favorite granddaughter out for a joyride. Let me be clear about something. Madison isn't my biological child. She came into my life after an unthinkable tragedy. My cousin, Stephanie, my best friend since kindergarten, my sister in everything, but blood died in a car crash with her husband when Madison was 2. There was no one else. No other family willing to step up. And I didn't hesitate. I became her legal guardian within weeks. Called in favors. Signed papers through tears. Baby-proofed my apartment while still wearing heels from the office. And it's been the most beautiful, painful, transformative thing I've ever done. Scott, my husband, was wonderful with her in the beginning. He loved her curls, her endless questions, the way she'd hum when she colored. He never made her feel adopted. Not at first. But his parents, that was a different story. They tried. Kind of. In the same way a cat might try to fetch a stick. Half-hearted, confused, slightly insulted by the concept. They'd buy her clothes, but always 2 sizes too big. They'd forget her birthday. Once at Thanksgiving, they served everyone pie and told her, "Oh, sorry, sweetie, we only made 6 slices." Like math hadn't existed that day. I'd convinced myself it was unconscious bias, a generational thing, ignorance dressed up as thoughtlessness. But seeing Madison kneeling on a tile floor, scrubbing away in silence, while Savannah was off eating cotton candy and riding roller coasters, that wasn't thoughtless, that was deliberate. As I tucked Madison into bed that night, with extra snuggles and the longest bedtime story known to man, I sat there and made a decision. I would never ever let that happen again, even if it meant setting fire to every bridge I thought was built to last. Even if it meant confronting people I'd smiled politely at for years. Because a mother's rage, it's quiet, it's patient, and it does not forget. The next morning, I didn't wake up to my usual alarm. I woke up to the sound of a spoon clinking against a cereal bowl. Madison was in the kitchen sitting quietly, trying her best not to make a sound. She had poured her own cereal and was nibbling at it like a squirrel who wasn't sure she had permission to eat. I leaned in the doorway and smiled softly. "You didn't have to get your own breakfast, sweet pea." She looked up startled again, then gave a tiny smile. "You were sleeping." I walked over and sat beside her at the kitchen island. "Yeah, but next time wake me up. I like mornings with you." She nodded, but her eyes dropped back to the soggy flakes floating in her bowl. I didn't push. Not yet. Instead, I pulled out my phone and began typing out a text. It wasn't passive-aggressive. It was plain aggressive. To Scott, "We need to talk. I'm taking Madison to my sister's for the day. Don't bring your parents near her until we sort this out." I didn't send it yet. Instead, I turned to Madison. "Would you like to go see Aunt Jess today? Maybe make brownies." She lit up just a little. "With the rainbow sprinkles? Only way to do it." We packed an overnight bag, and by 10 we were out the door and on the road to Fort Winslow, where my sister Jessica lived with her husband Marcus and their chaotic dog Tucker. Jess was my rock. Always had been. The kind of sister who brings a shovel and doesn't ask questions. When she saw Madison that morning, she didn't say a word about her red eyes or the stiffness in her posture. She just knelt down, opened her arms, and said, "Hey, superstar." Madison ran into her like a wave finally allowed to crash. While she and Marcus tackled brownie duty, Jess and I sat on the porch with 2 steaming mugs of cinnamon coffee and one heavy conversation between us. "You know," Jess said, "after a long sip, this isn't the first time you've had to clean up after them." I stared at the trees for a moment. "I know. You've always tried so hard to make them like her. But Amber, maybe they never will. And maybe that's not Madison's burden to carry." I didn't respond right away, just watched a squirrel leap from one branch to another with more grace than I felt in my entire soul. I finally said, I kept hoping it would change, that they'd soften. Jess let out a short laugh. "They think love is biology. That family is blood." I nodded. "But Madison is mine. My heart doesn't know DNA from paper." "That's because you're her mother," she said simply. "They're just people who married into your life, not the other way around." I hated how true that felt. By evening, Madison was curled up with a blanket and a brownie-stuffed belly, and I finally got the courage to send that text to Scott. He didn't reply. Not until the next morning. "Scott, can we talk? This is being blown out of proportion." That single sentence was a cold slap. Blown out of proportion. My child was left alone, with cleaning supplies, while the real granddaughter was whisked off for a day of joy. And he thought I was the dramatic one. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I drove Madison home and sat her down on the couch with her favorite coloring book. Then I waited for Scott to walk through the door. He did 30 minutes late, smelling like stale coffee and defensiveness. "I got your text," he said, putting his keys down like it was just another Tuesday. "Did you read it?" He looked at me confused. "Of course." I folded my arms. "Then say it out loud. Tell me what part was an overreaction." He sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "Amber, my parents are old, tired. They didn't mean any harm." "She was alone, Scott," I snapped, losing my softness for a moment. "They lied to me. Lied to her. And they took Savannah out for a fun-filled day while Madison scrubbed their floors. She probably offered to help." My hands clenched. She's 8, not a housekeeper, and helping is different from being left behind. Scott's eyes flashed with something I hadn't seen in a while, frustration laced with guilt. "They've always tried to connect with her, Amber. Maybe you're just too sensitive." I held up my hand. "Don't." He stopped. "I've bent over backwards to help your parents feel like family, but they treat Madison like a spare part. and I let it go. I smiled. I gave second chances. But this, I shook my head. This is the last straw. His silence said everything. I looked him in the eye and said gently but firmly, "If you can't see the problem here, then maybe you're part of it." And with that, I turned around and walked into the kitchen where Madison had just drawn a picture of 3 stick figures. Holding hands her me and someone labeled Uncle Marcus. No Savannah, no grandparents, no dad. Just us. Scott didn't sleep in our bed that night. He said he needed space to process things. I said nothing. Let him process. Let him stand in the mess he tried to sweep under the rug like it wasn't going to stain. I spent the night next to Madison, who clung to me even in her dreams. Every so often she'd twitch like she was bracing for something. I'd stroke her hair until she settled the way I used to when she was smaller. Just a baby with curls and nightmares too big for her head. By morning, the house was quieter than usual. Scott had left for work early. There was a post-it on the counter. "We'll talk tonight." Right. Talk. As if talking was going to undo what had already been revealed. I took Madison to school. She gave me a nervous glance as we pulled up. Will they be mad? I turned in my seat. Who? Papa, Nana, Savannah. Everyone. I reached back and took her small hand in mine. No one gets to be mad at you, baby. You didn't do anything wrong. You never have. She gave a slow nod and stepped out of the car. I watched her walk inside backpack, bouncing still a little too small for the world she was trying to navigate. That afternoon, I picked her up early. She blinked in surprise when she saw me. Is something wrong? Nope, I smiled. I just missed you. We went for frozen yogurt, extra toppings, no rules. I let her have gummy worms and cookie crumbs. I even added whipped cream, which she called fancy cloud stuff. We sat outside the shop as the sun sank low, and I finally asked her what had been gnawing at me for days. "Sweetie," I said gently, "has anything like what happened Friday ever happened before?" She looked down at her cup. The gummy worm slid down the side, half melted. "They don't like me," she said almost in a whisper. My chest tightened. "Who?" "Papa and Nana," she said. "They don't say it, but I know." "What makes you think that?" She shrugged. "They always buy Savannah better stuff. They get her ice cream and tell me I had enough sugar. They let her ride in the front seat even though I'm older. They told me I have messy hair, like someone from TV they didn't like. Once Nana told me I should be grateful because Mommy didn't have to take me in." Her voice cracked on the last part. My vision blurred. I clenched my jaw. "What else, honey?" "They make me clean," she said. "When you're not there, like the bathroom and the porch. Savannah doesn't have to. They say I'm being helpful, but it feels like chores, real ones, with timers." "Timers." She nodded. "Like I have to finish before the timer dings. Or they say I'm being lazy." I wanted to throw my yogurt across the parking lot. But Madison was watching me, so I smiled like everything was fine. "That's not okay," I said. "And it's not going to happen again." She looked relieved, but also like she hadn't expected me to believe her. That night, Scott came home with flowers. Peonies, my favorite. Too little, too late. "Can we talk?" he said, setting the bouquet on the counter like an apology could bloom between us. I crossed my arms. "Go ahead." He sighed. "I talked to my mom. She's sorry. She didn't mean to leave Madison alone. She didn't mean to leave her scrubbing floors while they rode a carousel." He flinched. "Amber, come on, it's complicated. She's not used to this dynamic." "You mean a granddaughter who didn't come out of someone's uterus they recognize." He winced. "That's not what I meant." "No," I said, voice calm and sharp. "But it's what you let happen. Over and over. And now our daughter thinks she's a burden in her own family." "She's not our daughter," he snapped before catching himself. The silence that followed was so loud I could hear the hum of the refrigerator behind me. I stared at him. "Wow, I didn't mean it like that." "But you said it." He stepped forward, hands out. "Amber, please. I love Madison. I do. But you can't expect my parents to just—" I took a step back. "Yes, I can. And I did. And they failed. And now apparently so have you." He looked like he wanted to say more. Maybe something rehearsed. But whatever speech he had ready evaporated. He just stood there clutching nothing. I turned to leave. He reached for my hand. I pulled it back. Later that night, I sent him a message. Me, Madison, and I are going to stay at Jess's for a while. I need time and space and a life where my child doesn't feel secondhand. He didn't reply until morning. Scott, I'm sorry. Please don't make this permanent. But deep down, I already knew. Some things break quietly. Some things snap loud enough to echo. And some things, they dissolve slowly, cleanly, and with finality. The guest room at Jessica's house still smelled like peppermint from the holidays. Madison picked a side by the window and made herself a little nest of pillows and plushies. I didn't have the heart to tell her we wouldn't just be visiting this time. I needed her to feel safe before she had to feel anything else. Jess let me work from her home office. Madison enrolled temporarily at a local elementary school. The transition wasn't smooth, but it was gentle, and after the chaos we'd been through, gentle was everything. The mornings were slower. No more rushing past Scott in the hallway. No more forced family dinners with his parents treating Madison like a stray someone had fed out of guilt. But despite the calm, I was angry. And when anger sits too long, it starts to harden into something else. I didn't know it yet, but I was already planning my next move. A few days later, I got a call from Scott. I let it go to voicemail. Then I played it twice. Hey, I just want to say I'm sorry, really. I miss you both. Can we talk? I'll come to Jess's if that's okay. Just tell me when. I didn't answer. Instead, I called my attorney. I need to revise custody, I said flatly. Temporarily, maybe permanently. Just start the paperwork. He asked if there was abuse. I told him no, not in the way the courts define it, but neglect of emotional well-being that we could build a case for, especially if it happened again. And I had a sick feeling it would. 3 days later, Scott's mother of all people showed up at Jess's front porch. She wore pearls. Pearls. I opened the door slowly. Madison was in the living room, drawing dragons, blissfully unaware. Amber, she said, arms folded. We need to talk. No, you need to leave, I replied, keeping my voice even. She didn't budge. I came to apologize. I raised an eyebrow. For what? She blinked as if shocked I'd make her say it. For the misunderstanding. There it was, the word that boiled my blood. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. You left an 8-year-old alone. You took another child out and lied about it. And now you're here acting like this is all a PR cleanup. I brought you something, she said, quickly reaching into her oversized tote. She handed me a photo album, glossy, new. On the cover, our grandchildren. I flipped it open. Page 1, Savannah at the park. Page 2, Savannah on the swings. Page 3, Savannah with Santa Claus. I stopped. Is Madison even in this? She hesitated. She's on the last page. I turned to the back. One photo, grainy, taken from behind. Madison in the distance at Thanksgiving, setting the table. She's not even facing the camera, I whispered. She's shy, she said, tone too sweet. Hard to get her to smile sometimes. I shut the book and handed it back. I'd rather burn this than let Madison think this is how love works. Her lips tightened. You've always been emotional, and you've always been cruel in beige sweaters. She gasped softly, then turned. You're making a mistake, Amber. Don't cut off your family over this. I didn't even hesitate. You're not my family. You're the people who made my daughter feel less. Then I closed the door. Madison peeked around the hallway corner. Was that Nana? I walked over and knelt. Yes. But you don't need to worry, honey. You won't be seeing her again unless you want to. She nodded, but her voice was small. Do you still love Daddy? The question hit me like a slap dipped in sorrow. I love the part of Daddy that used to read you bedtime stories and braid your hair in lopsided pigtails, I said. But sometimes people forget how to be who they were. Her little face tried to understand. Are we going to live here forever? No, I said. We're going to live somewhere better, where people treat us like we matter. You especially. She smiled, a real one. That night I began hunting for apartments. Something with light, space, a balcony maybe. I didn't know where yet, but I knew what I wanted. Not just a place to live, a place to grow. And I didn't know it yet, but something else was about to come my way. A moment of unexpected reckoning. Not just for Scott and his family, but for me too. Because the universe, she's got a funny sense of timing. And sometimes, revenge doesn't come wrapped in fire. It comes dressed as an opportunity. The opportunity arrived 2 weeks later, tucked inside my inbox, buried between marketing reports and client feedback surveys. Subject line nomination: Women of Integrity, Local Heroes in Leadership. At first, I thought it was spam, or maybe a networking email sent to everyone with a LinkedIn title fancier than assistant. But when I opened it, my breath caught. Dear Amber Bennett, you've been nominated anonymously for our 2025 Women of Integrity Award, recognizing leaders who demonstrate compassion, resilience, and ethical courage in personal and professional spheres. It went on to say I was invited to share my story at a charity gala hosted in Denver. 2,000 people in attendance. A segment filmed for the local station. 1 slot left for a keynote speech. I read it 3 times, blinking. Then I reread the anonymous nomination part again. Jess found me frozen at the dining table. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, walking in with a bowl of popcorn and a dog trying to eat half of it. I think someone just signed me up to tell my life story on stage, I mumbled. Jess leaned over, read the email, and gave one firm nod. You're doing it. I don't even know what I'd say, I muttered. You'll say the truth, she said. The kind of truth that shakes walls. The gala was 3 weeks away. I had just enough time to rehearse, panic rewrite my speech 12 times, and invest in a dress that didn't scream mom running from a custody battle or branding expert having a breakdown. Madison helped me pick the shoes. These look powerful, she said, pointing to a pair of black block heels. I smiled. Then I guess that's what we'll wear. The night of the gala was a blur, a warm blur, the kind that smells like perfume and velvet and old money pretending to be generous. I stood behind the curtain, notes in hand, heart in throat, and then I stepped onto the stage. A spotlight hit my eyes and I began. My name is Amber Bennett, I said. I'm a mother, a strategist, and someone who once believed silence kept the peace. There was a beat of stillness. I continued, voice steadier than I felt. But silence doesn't keep peace. It only keeps abuse comfortable. I didn't name names. I didn't throw direct punches. But I told them about Madison, about what it means to adopt a child into your heart, about watching her be treated as less than in rooms that should have loved her more fiercely than any. I told them about finding her scrubbing a floor alone, and I told them how I walked away. I didn't burn a bridge, I said toward the end. I just stopped watering a garden that never bloomed. That line got applause, the soft, echoing kind that says we've been there too. After the speech, a dozen women hugged me. 2 board members offered consulting contracts, and one older woman with silver curls and a cane whispered, Your story made me call my granddaughter. We haven't spoken in years. But what I wasn't ready for, what nearly knocked the wind out of me, was the message waiting for me in the lobby. From Scott. He stood in a dark suit that didn't fit quite right, holding his phone, eyes wide. You really did it, he said. You told everyone. I tilted my head. No, I told the truth. That's different. He walked up, voice low. Do you even care what this does to our family? I care about our daughter, I replied, who, by the way, isn't a prop in your family's image. He sighed. You could have just handled this quietly. I smiled. Not kindly. I tried quiet. Remember, it ended with her scrubbing tile while your mother took Savannah to a theme park. His face flushed. You embarrassed us. No, Scott, you did that all on your own. He looked at me, then really looked. Like someone trying to read a book they never bothered to open before. You're not coming back, are you? He asked. I shook my head slowly. No. I messed up, he whispered. You did. I didn't mean to. But you did anyway. There was nothing else to say. I walked away, heels clicking softly over marble floors, and didn't turn back. That night, back at Jess's, I tucked Madison into bed. You looked fancy on TV, she said, sleepily, already drifting. I smiled. Did I sound brave? She nodded, like a warrior, but in sparkles. I turned off the lamp and kissed her forehead. And in that quiet, I realized something. I hadn't just left a bad family behind. I had stepped into the life I was always meant to live, one where my daughter's worth wasn't up for debate, and where I didn't need anyone's approval to protect the person I loved most. A week after the gala, My inbox was flooded not just with media inquiries or conference invites, but with messages from women who saw themselves in my story. One stood out. It was from a woman named Lila Gomez, a school counselor in Calgary. She wrote, "My niece is going through something similar. Your speech gave me the courage to intervene." Another message came from a teacher at Madison's old school. "I always wondered why she seemed so careful, so eager to please. I wish I'd known. Thank you for speaking up." And then there was one from someone I never expected, Savannah's mom, Scott's sister-in-law, Elaine. Her message was short, but it hit like a thunderclap. "I'm sorry, I didn't know what they were doing to Madison. I thought they just preferred Savannah. I should have said something sooner." Attached was a screenshot of a text thread between her and Scott's mother from months earlier. It read, "Elaine, why wasn't Madison invited to the birthday dinner, Scott's mom? It's too much effort to include her. She's not really family anyway." I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. Proof. It was one thing to suspect it, another to see it. The cold-typed confirmation that my daughter was intentionally excluded, treated like a ghost in her own story. I forwarded the message to my attorney. He called within the hour. "Amber," he said, "this changes everything." "What can we do with it?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "We request full custody. No visitation unless you approve it. And if you want, we can escalate. There's potential for emotional harm claims." "I don't care about revenge," I said. "I care about protecting Madison." He paused. "Then we'll focus on that." Scott tried to call the next day. I didn't pick up. He texted, "I never saw that message. I didn't know." Then another, "Please don't take her away from me completely." I stared at the blinking cursor in the reply box, then deleted it. I wasn't going to text it. I was going to say it to his face. That Saturday, I agreed to meet him neutral ground, a quiet cafe near a lake we used to visit before everything soured. Madison stayed home with Jess painting suns and castles with glitter glue. Scott looked tired. He always did when he didn't get his way. "Thank you for meeting," he said, as if we were colleagues settling a budget dispute. I nodded. "Let's be clear. This is about Madison." "I know," he said quickly. "I know I messed up. I didn't think it was that serious." "That's the problem," I said, eyes level. "You didn't think. You let her be mistreated over and over. You let your mother chip away at her confidence like it was some annoying habit she'd grow out of." He rubbed his eyes. I didn't know what to do. "You do nothing when you're confused. But when your daughter is in danger, Scott, you move." He nodded, ashamed. "What happens now?" "My lawyer is filing for full custody. You'll get visitation. Supervised at first. After that, we'll see." His mouth opened, closed. I deserve that. I paused. "Do you love her?" "More than anything," he said without hesitation. "Then let her go. Let her heal. If you ever want to be part of her life again, prove you can protect her, not just love her." He nodded again, but slower. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw the version of Scott I once fell in love with, flawed but trying. "I want to do better," he said. "Then do it," I replied. "But don't expect applause for showing up late." When I left that cafe, I felt lighter. Not happy, not triumphant, but free. I had spent years trying to fold Madison into a family that saw her as optional, trying to convince them that love could come in many forms, not just bloodlines. I was done convincing. That night, as I tucked Madison into bed, she looked at me with those soft, wondering eyes. "Are we going to get a new house soon?" I smiled. "Not just a house, sweetie. A home." "Can it have a blue door?" she asked. "Like the one in that book." "Sure," I said. "Anything you want." She nodded, then snuggled into her blanket. "I'm glad we left." My throat tightened. Me too. And as she drifted off to sleep, I made a quiet promise to the ceiling, to the stars, to the version of myself I used to be. Never again. Never again would I let her believe she was less. She wasn't just enough. She was everything. 2 months later, we moved into our new place. It was a 2-story townhouse in Golden Valley, a small, sun-drenched neighborhood not far from Jess. Quiet streets, wide sidewalks, and most importantly, no grandparents lurking behind lace curtains. Madison picked the room with the bay window and insisted on painting one wall lavender. I let her. We got a kitten. She named it Doodle. And yes, the front door was blue, bright, whimsical, a little chipped already from the movers. Perfect. The first night in that house felt different. Not because the walls were new or the mattress hadn't molded to our shapes yet, but because for the first time in years we weren't bracing for someone else's expectations. We were just us. I framed one of Madison's drawings and hung it in the hallway. It was the three of us, me, her, and Doodle, standing in front of our new home. Above our heads, she'd written in wobbly bubble letters, "Our real family." I didn't cry. Okay, I cried a little. Custody was finalized the following week. Sole custody to me. Visitation rights to Scott supervised every other Saturday contingent on a quarterly review. The court had reviewed the message from his mother, the counseling notes from Madison's new school, and the testimony from her pediatric therapist. The ruling was swift. The judge's exact words, "It is not enough to love a child. You must also protect her dignity." Scott didn't protest. I think part of him expected it, maybe even needed it. And strangely, I was okay with that. I didn't want to punish him anymore. I just wanted him to get it. To finally understand what it meant to show up for someone when it wasn't convenient. And maybe he was starting to. He sent Madison a letter. No gifts, no bribery, just a plain white envelope with her name in careful block letters. Inside was a drawing. Him, her, and me stick figures holding hands again, but this time she was in the middle, smiling. He wrote, "I'm sorry I didn't make you feel like you were enough. You are. You always have been. I'm learning. I hope one day you'll let me try again. Love, Dad." She stared at it for a long time. Didn't say much, but she tucked it into her keepsake box, the one she only put important feelings in, like concert tickets and photos of her and Jess baking cookies. So I took that as a start. Not a fix, but a start. Weeks passed, life softened. I found new freelance clients, and a local nonprofit asked me to help rebrand their outreach program. Madison made her first real friend at school, a girl named Isla, who had a prosthetic leg and a laugh that shook the windows. One afternoon, as I sat on the porch with a coffee that had somehow stayed hot for more than 10 minutes, I got a text from a blocked number. Scott's mom. I stared at it, thumb hovering over the delete button. Then curiosity won. The message read, "You were right. I failed her. I failed you. I'll never expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I'm in therapy now. And I've started volunteering at a foster center. I hope you're both well." I blinked. No apology for the floor scrubbing. No acknowledgement of the emotional damage. But still something. Maybe the echo of change. Maybe just guilt wearing new clothes. Either way, I blocked the number again. Not out of anger, just peace. Some doors don't need to stay open. They just need to stay shut with grace. Later that evening, as I finished folding laundry, Madison crawled up beside me on the couch with Doodle in her lap. "Mom?" "Yeah, baby." She rested her head on my shoulder. "Do you think people can change?" I thought for a moment. Yes, but only if they really want to, and only if they try hard. Really hard. She nodded, like how I used to not like broccoli, but now I kinda do. I smiled, exactly like that. She giggled. "I think I'm changing too." "How so?" "I used to feel small, but now I feel—" She looked up thoughtful, like a mountain. And right then I realized something that I'd been too tired to hurt or too busy to see clearly before. She wasn't just healing. She was blooming. A year passed. A full orbit around the sun, marked not by holidays or birthdays, but by the quiet daily triumphs that stitched our new life together. Madison grew taller. Her curls grew longer. Her laugh, once careful and muffled, now burst out freely even in grocery store aisles, even during a math homework, even when she spilled juice all over the cat. Doodle, for his part, remained unimpressed. Our townhouse became a home, not because it was perfect, but because we were no longer pretending. We painted, we burned toast, we stayed up late watching baking shows. We disagreed about silly things like bedtime or sock colors, and then made up over popcorn. It was beautiful, ordinary, and ours. Then, on a soft October afternoon, something unexpected happened. A letter arrived. Not a text, not an email, an actual envelope with a return address from somewhere in Wyoming. The handwriting was slow, shaky. I knew before I even opened it. Scott's mother. I hesitated. I almost tossed it. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe the part of me that still hoped people could mean what they say, opened it. Inside was a photo. Madison, about 6 years old, sitting at a picnic table. It must have been during one of those rare weekends when the tension dipped low enough for a photo to sneak in unnoticed. She was mid-laugh, frosting on her chin, eyes squinted shut in delight. Taped to the back was a sticky note. I found this in an old drawer. I never noticed how happy she looked that day. I didn't see it then, but I do now. I'm sorry I missed the chance to love her right. Marianne. No dramatics. No please take me back speech. Just truth. Late but true. I folded the photo and placed it gently in Madison's memory box. Maybe someday I'd tell her where it came from, or maybe I wouldn't. She was in the backyard spinning, in the fading light, arms out like airplane wings. She looked so free. That evening, as we curled up with a movie and fuzzy socks, Madison looked at me and said, "Mom, I think this is the happiest I've ever been." I paused the movie. "Really?" She nodded. "And not because of stuff, just because of us." That night, I stood by her bed a few minutes longer than usual, watching her sleep, one hand curled in Doodle's fur, her other arm flung across her sketchbook like a tiny artist too tired to finish. I thought back to the day I found her scrubbing floors, to the look in her eyes, the silence, the shame she never should have known. And now here she was, whole, worthy, home. For anyone listening, maybe you're somewhere in between the fall and the rise. Maybe you're watching someone you love being hurt in invisible ways. Or maybe you are that someone. Here's what I've learned. You are allowed to leave places that make you small. You are allowed to protect your peace. And you are never wrong for demanding kindness, not just for yourself, but for the ones you love, especially the little ones. Madison once asked me what makes a family. I told her it's not blood. It's who stays. It's who listens. It's who brings you back to life when the world tries to shrink you. We are a family, and no one gets to question that again. Good night, friend. Wherever you are, I hope you feel safe. I hope you feel seen. And I hope you always know this. You don't have to earn love. You already deserve it. Sleep well.